Hello, everybody. I've been unavoidably offline for a couple of weeks, but my favourite hobby isn't forgotten. Here we go. My daughter Seiya and I just spent a couple of weeks in China. Fantastic trip. It was work, but we enjoyed a super time. Nice hotels, good food, safe, clean cities, Nanning and Kunming in the southwest of China. Above all, friendly people who seem relaxed and happy to talk to us. Saya loved going to the small shops and ordering food online, trying out her Mandarin or using Google Translate. It all seemed fun and easy. So I thought when we got back, I'd try something as a contrast. I thought I'd catch up on American politics. What a nasty shock. I've been enthusiastic about American politics ever since I was at university. I studied under my tutor, Larry Seedentop, at Oxford. Larry was memorably colourful. He won't remember my mediocre essays, but I certainly remember him. I read, and to Larry's surprise, finished Alexis de Tocqueville's enormously long book. Read it. It's still relevant. When I post about American politics on LinkedIn, I sometimes get told to butt out. I'm not American, and so why the hell do I think I have the right to comment on American affairs? Come on, guys. The USA is the world's largest economy in terms of GDP. And while the population is dwarfed by the giants of India and China, even Europe has more people, it carries a massive weight of cultural and business influence. Not to mention the greenback, the US dollar, is the world's reserve currency. Whatever is said about the US dollar's demise, I get paid in US dollars, and its health versus the Thai baht, where I incur most of my costs, is a daily concern. American presidents can zap people, if they don't like them, from drones in countries in which they have no legal right to do so. And it seems they can do that without the approval of Congress. Let's explore that question a bit further. When was the last war that the US undertook that had the support of Congress? Do you know? In fact, the Constitution grants Congress the sole power to declare war. And you might be surprised to learn that Congress has formally declared war on only 11 occasions, including the first declaration of war with Great Britain in 1812. Congress approved its last formal declaration of war in World War II. Otherwise, it just goes along to get along, providing the funds, flag waving, and the applause. The American president has acted without prior military approval from Congress on around 125 occasions. These include the Philippine-American War from 1898 to 1903, wars in Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos in the 1970s, NATO bombing of Yugoslavia in 1999, 2018 missile strikes on Syria. Actually, it's a very long list. So long as the USA influences everywhere from the Solomon Islands, where I worked for USAID last year, to Timbuktu, so long as it can reach out and prosecute non-Americans for doing their jobs outside the USA, think Julian Assange, then I'm going to say what I think, even if I can't vote. But then, if I could, what's that worth these days? So now that's off my chest, what's going on? In a recent podcast with Joe Rogan, a truth seeker for whom I have a high regard, the former Fox News pundit Tucker Carlson said, I'll paraphrase, quote, "The American government's policy is to destabilize other countries and reduce ours to poverty." That's probably a bit harsh, and it's certainly not very nuanced, but many can be forgiven for thinking it's true. I'll turn to another favourite academic, Victor David Hanson. He's an American classicist, a prolific author, a military historian, and conservative political commentator. Hanson asks, quote, "If somebody wished to destroy America, could he do anything more catastrophic than what we currently see and hear each day? What would an existential enemy do that we have not done to ourselves?" End quote. He provides a long list of actions, taken or not. I'll mention what seems to me the most egregious of foreign and domestic offences. Appease actual enemies like Iran or aggressive competitors like China. I was appalled by Obama's nuclear treaty with Iran, negotiated by, quote, nice people, unquote, like John Kerry and Wendy Sherman. Negotiated with some of the most brutal and ruthless people on the planet, and they were taken to the cleaners. The withdrawal from Afghanistan was unspeakably shameful. It followed telegraphing defeat to the Taliban, Trump failed here too, that undermined any chance of a sustainable Afghan national government. The USA has a long history of failing its allies, think South Vietnam, but it confirms it even more recently through its actions in the Middle East and Africa. Bases attacked, soldiers killed, without any kind of real response. The spectacle of 1,000 troops in Niger without adequate supplies is a measure of military incompetence that shows just how the American military has been undermined. Shockingly slow, laggard, and incompetent efforts using international development. I better not say more for breaching my contract arrangements. However, I first experienced this in Pakistan in 2008, when literally over a weekend, the US government cancelled $1 billion Empower Pakistan program, replacing it with voiced skepticism about Pakistan's use of development aid. Perhaps true, but it was an egregiously inept way of treating an ally, and relations with Pakistan have gone downhill ever since. I could write a book about this. Hang on, I have. Check out Rivers of Aid, Stories from the Poor Countries. Check out the link, especially the audio version launched in this episode. On the domestic front, I hardly need mention the US southern border. In the Middle Ages, if hundreds of thousands of foreigners, mainly fit young men with no apparent skills, swarmed a border, the invasion would have been repelled with maximum force. Instead, these cartel soldiers are welcomed with free phones and other goodies. Of course, the US isn't unique in this respect. Europe's been turned into a multicultural nightmare. I hear that the population of Brussels is 70% migrant. Imagine that happening in Beijing, or even where I live in Bangkok. Perhaps Europe will wake up, I hope so, before there's a bloodbath of the indigenous European population. And finally, the American justice system has become an international dark comedy reality show, and your version of democracy, always problematical, has become a sham. So, what the hell has happened? Are the people running things delusional? That seems hard to credit. There are easily duped fools like John Kerry and Blinking Blinken, men who make previous secretaries of state look like geniuses, let alone those who actually were geniuses. But I doubt delusion or stupidity is the answer. AOC may be the exception to the rule. There are others, but mostly not. There are mediocre job and rent seekers, but you don't work your way up through a system that makes ancient Byzantium look transparent by being dumb. Except, of course, if you are the White House press secretary and a quintessential DEI hire. I have to conclude that what's going on is deliberate, worked at by the swamp and its multifarious agencies. Why? Why would public servants undermine the people who pay them in almost every area of government and academic activity? It makes no sense. And it's not Russia, China, the mullahs, or Fatboy Kim. These are all national entities with their own agendas. And those are more mundane and simply competitive. Sure, they pay their spies, hire experts, steal tech, par for the course. Not enough to bring a country to its knees in terms of its own self-belief, so that the educated youth want to destroy the very society that enables them to live the lives of princes and princesses. Just look at the self-satisfied, entitled, and mostly white, pasty faces behind the spectacles and purple hair. My working hypothesis is that those controlling the front men, Biden, Johnson, dozens of senior congresspersons, and a slew of juniors, are coldly ruthless cadres of an international elite who see no issue with bringing down the USA and destroying American values in the interests of pursuing permanent power. You can include Soros, Bill Gates, and the World Economic Forum if you like, but I suspect it's far less simple. Again, known people are far more likely to be constructs or puppets. The people I'm talking about stand above ideas of patriotism or nationhood. Globalist has become a cliche. These individuals or corporations simply don't see the use for most of the stuff happening in everyday society, or most of us. I'll leave it there. But with this one further point. If you can accept that President John F. Kennedy was killed by the swamp, and that seems widely accepted based on the evidence, then you have at least to be open to the idea that the fantastic current chaos in the USA could be the result of deliberate action. In future episodes, I'll explore this hypothesis, which is not yet a conspiracy theory. Let me know your thoughts and stay safe.